Hey everybody, I am Stacy. I'm the owner and artist of New Creations by Stacy. I am a Dixie Belle Elite retailer here in Ardmore, Alabama at the Rustic Willow. And then I'm also still in Madison as well at Blue by JD Vintage Market. So just to talk about really quick in the description, please like and follow me on Facebook. I have my link there. I also have a full product list of what we're going to be working with today, just in case you need to find any of these products or you wanted to purchase them. I do have my affiliate link listed. You can also find your local retailer through that affiliate link as well. If you are a retailer, by the way, please post on here your store and your location so that if anyone sees this, they're local, they're able to find you as well. But just say, hey, I do try to go on and like and follow anybody who posts their business information on there as well. So today we'll go ahead and get started. I see a few people jumping on. Hey Lulu, hey Joyce. All right. Oh, hey, from Marco Island, Florida. Are you guys, how's your weather down there? Well, I guess that hurricane isn't coming across. It's been into the northeast. But anyway, anytime I think of the South, I think of that coastal. So we're going to be working on this gorgeous French provincial dresser. We're going to be doing, basically this has one coat on it, but we're going to be doing a little blending, so to speak, with our silk paint with Wharf and Saltwater. We're going to be doing a raised stencil as well, and then if we have time, we'll go ahead and stain the top in Espresso also. So if you guys are watching and you want to see, if just in case we're running low on time, if you would rather see this being stained than a second coat over here, just let me know and I can adjust whatever it is we're doing with that. So on this piece, I did start off by cleaning it with White Lightning, which is really important. It's a TSP based cleaner. It's a deglosser. It's going to get the grease and grime off. You just use 2 tablespoons of this. You mix it with a gallon of water. I put mine in a Windex bottle. Lasts forever. Way cheaper than the TSP you get at Lowe's that's already mixed up. I think I've probably had this for a year, and you know I paint all the time. So, I mean, it really, really goes a long way. Once you clean it, you're going to rinse it. You don't want any of that residue left over on there because your paint, you can have an issue with the paint sticking if you have a lot of residue and don't rinse it well. I also did do a scuff sand because we're using silk, which is a little bit different from the CNP. So I just wanted to give my paint something to stick to. So, silk. It has a built-in stain blocker equivalent to 1 coat of Boss. Hey, oh, definitely Lulu. I mean, you know, I think the stuff, I can't remember I think it's $5.95 or something like that. It's not very expensive. And just for the 32 ounce one at Lowe's, I think it's like $7, $8. And of course that makes just 2 tablespoons a whole gallon. So it's awesome. Hit from Irma a few years ago. Oh gosh, I lived on the coast for a little while, but I'm not from the coastal area, so a hurricane scared me. Tornadoes though, I'm used to those. Let's see, I definitely will. I do have a list in the description also, but I don't have the White Lightning. I just have the list of what we're doing today. Like and follow me on my page too, because I do list all the products when I post it, but I'll list that, what I did first. After, I'll just put it in the comments under yours. All right, so this has a built-in blocking primer, which is equivalent to about 1 coat of Boss. This is cherry wood though. Cherry's a heavy bleeder. It usually bleeds that red color, so if you see some painted furniture, if somebody didn't prime it, you'll see that coming through, and it'll either make your white really dingy depending on the wood, or it'll make it red if it's cherry. So anyway, I did do 1 coat of Boss because I was a little bit worried about the bleed through, and this is my 1 coat of Boss. I'm a very thin painter, don't like brush strokes, and I want this to be a really elegant finish. I only want brush strokes if I'm meaning to. So I will tell you, this has one coat of silk on it, and there was a tiny bit of bleed through. I probably would have been fine when I put the second coat on. So in this center section, I did, which is what we're gonna do the first coat here with, I did go ahead and do a touch up of a second coat of Boss, just in certain spots where I thought I might have more issues with the bleed through. But this silk paint is also gonna help with that. Silk also has a one coat of clear coat protectant, or equivalent to one coat of a clear coat protectant in it as well. So that's why it's an all-in-one mineral paint, and it is an amazing paint. I love it. So to get started, I'm gonna actually drop you down so you have a nice close-up here. And I'm gonna be starting off with using my small round, and I'm gonna use that for Wharf. It's a dark gray, and I'll show that to you here in a second. And then the other color we're using is Saltwater, which is a white. I've been playing around with mixing these colors with silk a little bit, but I've tended to keep them pretty close together. So these are very contrasting colors, but they're blending up really nicely. So since it's a lot more white in this, or Saltwater, but I'm gonna be using my oval medium brush for that. So I'm gonna pop you guys down. You probably won't be able to see me. And by the way, if I do miss any questions, because this painting process has to be done pretty quick because it's not like the CMP. We don't use a spray bottle. And so we need this paint workable. But if I do miss any comments, and I forgot to pull it up here, but if I do miss any comments, I'll go back and answer those questions. And let me go ahead and bring you down. Hey, Teresa. Teresa's local too, so. Oh. All right, so by the way, I forgot to mention I did put some Would You Bend on here as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit too, and I'll list those numbers. I kind of did that at the last minute today, so I just want to make sure you guys have a good view of, there we go, perfect. All right, so we're gonna go with our dark colors Wharf. I'm not using a lot of that. What I want to do, I really like to shade with my paint as opposed to, you know, like glazing, and I still do glaze at the end in certain cases, but I really like to do as much as I can with the paint. I feel like I have more control there. So you can see kind of how contrasting these colors are. This is Wharf, so it's like a dark gray, and I think it depends on the lighting, but this almost has, it seems like it's, in certain ways, it looks a little olive, like base-wise. And then we've got the Saltwater here, which is the white. And like I said, I'm gonna do this in small sections because you do have to keep the paint movable. So when I start, I'm holding my brush closer to the end because I wanna have a lot of control with where I'm putting this Wharf. So you can see I'm just using a little bit of paint. Let's go ahead and start down here. Well, actually, let's start at the top. So let me come in here first because we'll get these sections. So I'm just giving this a little bit of a highlight where I want it to be darker. And it's got to be the lighting because this is a dark gray color. It just, but once I mix it with the Saltwater, it really seems like it's got that undertone. So I'm just coming in with the areas that would naturally be darker where it curves back over. And I want to keep my paint nice and wet so it'll blend in. So I've got another little bit here of the Saltwater. And first I'm going to start off by spreading my paint out a little bit because I don't want to get too much white to completely cover that. And I'm using two brushes. Normally when you've seen me blending on these lives with silk, I normally have used the same brush because that just helps the color mix up a little bit. And like I said, you don't really have a lot of time here. And I'm not really worried about what I'm hitting over here because I have to do a second coat on there. And I'll do the second coat all in one so it'll flow a little bit better. I may go in and show you up here, but otherwise. Hey, Claire. Hey, Tanya. All right, so we've got this. See how easy that was to really blend? And I will say one thing about silk. What you see is pretty much what you get. It might look a little streakier as it dries, but not nearly as much as the CMP. I can get a whole different look by the time the CMP dries when I'm blending. So again, I'm holding my brush like this. I don't want a lot of paint on it. Well, a little bit more. Don't want a lot of paint on it. And this is what gives me control. I'm not going on this way. I'm going just in the lines. And I mean, I am putting it out a little bit, but it does make a difference how you hold the brush. If I would not hold the brush this way, I'd end up with a large streak and a lot more of this Wharf than I actually want. Just trying to make sure I get in here for the coverage. I will go back and fix that up a little bit though. I'm trying to keep the center where it comes out. I want that to be the most light because that's naturally where, if you had a shadow, where it would be the lightest. So I'm just spreading this out, and then I'm going to kind of go up and down. I'm going to flip my brush around because you see one side has that dark gray, the other side has the white. Flip it around because I want to keep that gray with the gray, kind of. We're just going to brush this over. Then we're going to start bringing it together. So when I'm first putting my brush down, I'm really I'm not scrubbing it in, so don't think I'm scrubbing. But I am kind of pushing the paint in. I've got a heavier hand. But as I'm finishing up, I'm slowly letting go of some of the pressure and lightly feathering kind of at the end. So at first, I've got a lot of pressure on my brush, and as I'm going, I'm slowly releasing that pressure so the bristles are just barely touching it. And that's what's going to give you more of that brush-free look, that more elegant look. Another thing is, these brushes are phenomenal. They are synthetic brushes, and that's going to lend itself to no brush strokes. And I'll show you guys in a minute one of the natural bristle brushes because I'm going to use it on this Would You Bend. All right, so again, just holding the paintbrush down. And if you guys, like I said, if you have any questions, I'm not seeing any on here yet, but please definitely ask. If you think of some later, feel free to message me on my page as well. And I will post final pictures of this piece on there. I've got quite a bit more detail work to do. This is at the very beginning stages. I just wanted to get ready for this live. Also, I'm going to be doing a live on my page this weekend with a gorgeous hope chest and some transfers. So we're just bringing in the saltwater again. And I've got a little bit I accidentally hit there from the gray and brought it right into the center, but that's okay. I'm still in this blending phase, so I'm going to go up and down again because this is a larger area. And then let me get this side over here. Now see, I forgot to flip my brush around this time, and see, I've got the gray coming much farther out than if I would have flipped my brush around. And that's just because of where it was on my brush. I wasn't keeping it even, but I'm kind of okay with that because of course I do want the bottom to be a little bit darker because again, the bottom of your piece, you would have more shadowing. I'm going up and down just so I can smooth this all together, and then very light across so that everything's going in the same direction. Just going to fill this in right here. I'm going to come back with my Wharf a little bit. Let me scoot over. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of it down here. That was a little bit lighter than I wanted. And just kind of move that around a little bit. You do not want to overwork the silk because the silk dries from the top in. So you can kind of, it'll form kind of the skin over it. And if you start overworking it, you'll start pulling that skin back a little bit. So you do want to be a little more careful there. So let's go ahead and do this would you bend part. And this is something I normally do with molding, but I'm going to start off with my darkest color. And oop, I've lost the video. Hold on, let me just make sure it's still popping up. There we go. Perfect. All right, so what we're gonna do here, this is a French tip brush. It's a natural bristle brush. You can see the difference here. These bristles are more stiff. They're more likely to give you brush strokes, but they are great for working in details. So anytime I'm using multiple colors and I've got some molding or something like that on here, I do use a brush like this because it makes it easier. You can kind of scrub a little bit and it just makes it easier to get in the details and make sure that you have that good coverage. So we're just gonna get down in here. After this, we're gonna do the raised stencil. I'm gonna only do this center section so you can see. And the reason I'm putting so much on is because, again, I want this to look very dimensional. Hopefully I'm not in front of the camera. It's just frequently when you're working with them, hopefully I didn't put my hair in the paint. I do that a lot. But it's really easy to miss some places. And I only want to do this once. So I really want to scrub nicely in here. And the thing about it is with the chalk mineral paint, it's a little bit easier because you can add water and that water thins out the paint and naturally lets it sink into those grooves and all those details. But with silk, you do not want to add water after it's on your surface because it's already started to dry and it changes the consistency of a little bit. So now that I've done that, I'm going to come back with my Saltwater, which is a little bit different than how I've been doing it. And this will have a second coat on it, so it's not really a big deal. I just want to make sure that I don't leave too much of that dark. Just want to make sure that I give it some nice highlights. And again, I'll come over here and do some blending in these areas on that second coat. So I am going to come in with a little bit of Wharf right here. Just what I have left on my brush. I didn't re-dip it or anything. Want to get it into these low points to just bring it over. So you can see this actually has a really nice coverage, but with silk you do want to do 2 coats. To ensure just the integrity of the paint and everything like that. So let's go ahead and move over. I'm going to pop you guys back up because I'm going to drop it down so that you can see how we're going to do the raised stencil. And the raised stencil, if you can, it is easier to do it when it's flat as opposed to, vertical. So I'm going to go ahead and pop you up and then drop you down so that you can see that part. Hey, Amber, how are you? All right, so give me just a sec here. All right, and so for just a sec, you're going to kind of see the floor, but there we go. So I'm going to pop this drawer out right quick. So I did go ahead and put part of the raised stencil on. And this is the Damask Stencil. And there's a couple different ways that you can make a raised stencil. How did the green piece come out? Oh, I'm actually working at, hey, Amber asked how the green piece came out that I was working on the Dixie Belle Paint Company page. I'm actually going to be doing it Monday on that page. We're going to do the faux wood grain top. Please don't look at my toes here either, but we're going to do the faux wood grain top and the transfers and everything. So you can definitely see how that's looking. I'm trying not to repaint it though. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with that. But the raised stenciling is a couple of different ways you can do it. A lot of times I do it with sea spray. In this case, I'm actually using the white Dixie mud. And I'm doing it in between my first and second coats. But frankly, I do kind of like this. But I haven't decided if I'm going to end up going over it with like a gilding wax or, whoops, wrong way, or whatever. Maybe even a pearlescent glaze. But this is the Damask Stencil here. And what I'm going to do, so I've done part of this. It's fairly dry. A little, I would have liked it to be a little bit drier, but it's dry enough for me to go over it like this. I'm just lining it up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and tape it down. But once I do this, we're gonna come back with a fine grit sanding paper, and we're gonna kind of smooth this side out so you can see the whole process. So let me go ahead and peel some of this tape off. Well, I've just moved it. Let's see, there we go. This is probably my hardest part, is getting things lined up again. I'm terrible about that. And I'm somewhat impatient too, so that doesn't help any. I'm like, oh, it's close enough. That's my thing. So that's pretty good there, I think. So let me go ahead and put the tape down. Then I'm just gonna run it out to make sure it's relatively, well, not relatively straight. I do want it to be straight. All right. So let me go ahead and tape it down a little bit better. And I'm only doing this one line. On the top drawers over here, I think I'm gonna end up doing, and it's, by the way, this is curved as well, so that's one reason it's not laying out perfectly, but it's laying out pretty well here. Oh, hey, Joe. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I see you on pretty regular, but hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm taping off these bottom sections because I do not want these parts of the stencil on here. So earlier I forgot to tape one of these off. And I was able to, because this stays wet for a little bit, I was able to just come back and wipe it off. And that's another nice thing about the silk paint. It's got that coat of built-in protectant. So it's a little bit easier to manipulate without having to run an extra protectant over it. So I'm doing terrible at taping this off while I'm talking. So let me just be quiet for a second here. And just want to make sure this is nice, laid down straight. I've got to kind of go at angles so I don't tape off a section that I actually want to show up here. This Damask Stencil has like these columns, and then the bottom of the, or the top of the damask coming up in between the columns. So just want to make sure that's nice and covered. And we're still straight, so that's a good thing. So I taped off a little section there. Let me go ahead and just rip my tape. So I prepped this pretty quickly today as well. I did do the Boss last night. And the Boss, you do kind of want to, so if you're doing 2 coats, you want to wait at least 2 hours between the coats. And you want to do thin coats. If your coat is too thick, you can get some crackle with the Boss, or you can get a lot of brush strokes. Anything you do with the primer, you're going to see brush stroke wise on the final finish. So I did do that last night, and I let it sit overnight so that it would get nice and dry and it would be effective as a blocker. All right, so I've just about got this all taped off. There we go, perfect. Just gonna one little last thing there to try to hold that down. Okay, so now we've got the stencil on here. We, again, are gonna use Dixie Mud. And the Dixie Mud, so before I forget to say it, do not run it down your sink. Do not. This can mess up your pipes. So like I rinse mine off outside. Hey, Pam. Pam's actually the hope chest that I'll be working on live this weekend, and I'll be posting about that. So this is what the Dixie Mud looks like. It's a wood filler. You can use it to fill like your hardware holes, or, you know, do minor repairs. You can build out small things. But you do want to keep it stirred up. And after you open it, you do store it in the refrigerator. So you want it to be like a nice creamy consistency. If you don't use it for a while, it's a good idea to try to stir it like once a week. It's nothing really bad is gonna happen if you don't, but because I forget frequently. And I was using black for a while, so I haven't used this white in a little while before today. But see how it looks nice and creamy, kind of just like butter, like a whipped butter. So what I'm gonna do, I don't know why I was gonna use this, but what I'm gonna do is use, there's a lot of things you can use. There's a little thingamajig that's sold separately that you can use specifically for it. You can use the palette, not palette knives, but you know, like the plastic, I can't remember what they're called, but we sell them. But I'm using the one that comes with our stencils here, the silkscreen stencils. So I find that it's wonderful for laying this out and smoothing it out. So I'm just gonna take a little bit here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm holding this transfer down because I couldn't tape it on the edge. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of spread this around. I'm not worried about being perfect this instant. I just want to kind of get it on here. Now you can tint the Dixie Mud too. It also comes in black and brown depending on your project. Of course I chose white because I'm painting this in light colors, but you can tint it. So if I was doing like say blue, I probably want to have this closer to the color. So I would go ahead and tint it for the raised stencil. And actually the reason I would do that too, just to give you an idea. So with this, if you, like let's say you chip it. Let's say somebody has your furniture and they knock this into something and it chips. It's gonna chip the paint off, and with it not being tinted, it's gonna show up white. Since I'm painting this such a light color and I'm probably gonna go over it with the gilding wax as well, it's not an issue for me, but I would tint it otherwise. You can also do the same thing with sea spray, which is nice because if you want an exact color match, that will give it to you, the sea spray will. But I do like, you know, I love how the Dixie Mud goes on. I love Dixie Mud. I would never go back to like the wood filler that you buy at Lowe's or whatever. This stuff is so much better. And I've used plastic wood. I've used all kinds of different stuff. This is by far my favorite. So again, I'm just spreading it around. I want to get it down here some. I didn't quite get much coverage there. And I'm kind of just taking some of the excess from these other areas and bringing that over. We're going to smooth it out shortly. I just am still in the application portion. So it's a little bit much over on this side. I'm going to go ahead and take some of that excess and bring it back over here. It does clean up really easily though. Just the biggest thing is remember not to wash it down your sink. So we're still just, all right, so I've got it pretty well applied. I'm just gonna go back through and make sure I didn't miss any spots because it's easy to do when you're covering so much and you've got so much on here. All right, so now I'm gonna take the long side, and to smooth it out, I'm just gonna come across here like this in one nice fluid motion. I am being a little careful though, because with this stencil, you've got a lot of small parts, and it's easy to accidentally knock one of these little plastic, thin plastic parts off. So I'm just being really careful not to pull too much from there. But I'm just lightly scraping it across so it's nice, just as smooth as I can get it. Again, I want this piece to be more elegant. It looks nicer if it's a little more rough, if you're doing like kind of a distressed farmhouse thing. All right, so now it should be fairly well smoothed. And I've got a lot of excess here, so I don't like to waste that. I'm gonna go ahead and just scoop it back into my container. This stuff goes a long way too. I feel like all of the Dixie Belle products go a long way. But I would say White Lightning, best deal. All right. So we've got that on. So now I would put this back in the refrigerator. If you forget to put it in the refrigerator for a day or two, it's usually fine. It does have, I think they reformulate it so it has like an anti-mildew thing, but that's kind of what the issue is that over time, if you don't keep it in a cool place, you can get some mildew in there. So I'm just cleaning off my my little thing here. And as soon as I get off the live, I will clean off my stencil as well. And all I do is rinse it off. Like I said, it comes off very easily. I don't like to scrub my stencils that have so much delicate detail. Okay, I'm just gonna be careful on this other side where I've got the tape down too. Perfect. All right, so you can see that I did get a few areas. I'm not gonna worry about this over here. I'll sand that extra down off the side. But I did get a few areas that were outside of, I guess I just probably taped them off badly, like right here. So I'm just gonna clean that off because I don't want that down here. And see how easy that was? I will say I did also, I don't really have to fix this. It doesn't need to be perfect. But I did smear the stencil when I was taking it off a little bit. So I'm just gonna go through and clean it up a tad bit. Once this dries too, I'll be able to clean it up with the sanding sponge. But just so, I just kind of wanted that part off. So what I'm gonna do now is this side is relatively dry. I put it on, I would say about 1:30 this afternoon, and I did put a fan in front of it. So like I said, it is relatively dry. It's not super secure yet. Normally I would wait like overnight to do this part, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it on the live. So this is a Surf Prep sanding pad. Dixie Belle does carry these as well, and I'm gonna cut it in half. It comes in 4 different grits. This is a super fine grit, and if I'm not mistaken, the super fine is equivalent to like 400 to maybe 320 to, I don't know, 600 grit sandpaper, something like that. But it's a very, very fine grit. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and smooth some of this out on my raised stencil. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on here. I'm just going over some of the rougher areas, so you can see where I did a little smear over here. It's not bad. But I'm just going to sand that down a little bit so that it's nice and even. And this sands up really well, but I want to do this so light because I don't want to take away my raised stencil. I just want to smooth it. I want it to be as smooth as possible. And I am going to paint over this. So now, just so you know, this will reactivate a little bit with water. So with the silk paint, I think I'm just going to go ahead and try to paint right over it. I haven't done it yet with silk. So I'm not sure, that's a little bit wet, so I'm not going to touch this up here. But normally, if I'm using chalk mineral paint, because you spray it with water, it will reactivate a little bit. So I normally do seal it and then wait overnight before I paint over it. And the reason that I do that is that sealer creates a barrier so that this does not reactivate, and kind of smear around. If I have done it without sealing it before and it just, you get a little bit of gritty here and there. So that's why I tried to seal it, especially if I want a nice smooth finish. But I'm going to bring you guys in so you can see that raised stencil and how it came out. So this side is the side that's already dry. This side is the side we just did. So you can see kind of, well, actually I can't see where I messed up, but it's on there somewhere. So I'm going to tell you, mine has never actually mildewed, but I've just heard that, and I heard that they did reformulate it to keep that from happening. And I'm going to tell you, I've left mine out of the refrigerator for at least a week, but the jar does say, the jar does tell you not to wash it down the drain, and it just says refrigerate after opening. I would say if you just had a little bit, you could probably just scoop it out and it would be fine, you know, if you didn't. But like I said, I've had this in my garage, no less. I've forgotten it for about a week, and I didn't have any issues. Put it back in the refrigerator, no problem. But like I said, there is a component in it that does prevent mildew, but it's still recommended for the refrigerator. Just seeing if there's anything else. Use to veneer, gouges, holes, and scrapes. Yeah, it doesn't say. I wanted to double check it. I don't actually ever read the containers. But, you know, I probably did a couple years ago. But so anyway, this is the raised stencil. And let's see, I only have about 7 minutes. So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss any questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I didn't get to do the top, but I can't quite, you know what? It'll be okay if I go a little over. Let's go ahead and do the top. It'll be fine. It probably won't take me but maybe 5 minutes. Well, maybe 10 minutes to stain the top. So we'll go ahead and do that so that way you can see. And I'll try to be quick about it. So for the stain, oh, I only brought one glove out. That's okay. For the stain, this is an oil-based stain. I'm probably going to talk a little fast here. So this is, when you say what product requirements, do you mean for the Dixie Mud or just if you can, I may not see it before we get off, but if you can just specify which product, and I can definitely post right after the live. So we're going to be using Espresso. I had not used my Espresso in a little while, and I didn't close it very well. So earlier I opened it and stirred it up, and I had a little like leathery thing going on where it had dried some. So you do want to get a good seal. It's best if you don't use it out of the can, because my seal, it's because of all this around here why I don't have a good seal. So, oh, for the fridge, you just keep it in the fridge. After you open it, put it in the fridge and then just take it out to use it. Like I said, I've forgotten to store mine in the fridge. I know other people who have too. I don't actually know anyone who's had that problem, but I have heard about it. So I just want to be clear. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this up really well. Hopefully I don't drop any on my drawer. All right, so I'm actually going to go ahead and put some on a plate because I really don't want to use it out of here. I can always dump whatever I need to back in. So I'm gonna just put this on the plate. It is oil-based, so it's not a soap and water cleanup. I'll show it to you guys in just a sec. I just wanna be more careful of where I throw that because it is oil-based. I just got it all over my stool, but that's okay. Put the lid on it a little bit. So not a soap and water cleanup. If you get it where you don't want it, mineral spirits is what you would use to clean it up with. So the no pain gel stain, you do not have to sand and strip in order to use it. You can put it over an existing finish because it does mainly sit on top of the finish. It doesn't sink in as much as like the water-based stains or the non-gel based stains. You can actually apply it in several different ways. I prefer the applicator pad. These come 2 in a pack. They're like, I think they're $4.95 or something like that. They are washable and reusable if you're using them for a water-based stain. If you're using them for oil, if I'm going to do 2 coats, I'll usually throw them in the freezer in a Ziploc bag, just get the air out, and then I can keep them for the second coat, but after a while they do harden up and go bad. You can also use a brush to apply it with. I like to use a natural bristle brush. Our premium chip brushes are great for that. And that helps if you have like oak particularly because the grains are so deep. I usually choose that application method for oak. One thing about this oil-based stain, you do have a longer work time with it just because it is oil-based, so it doesn't dry as quickly. I'm kind of in an awkward spot over here and I'm trying to rush. But you do want to make sure your strokes are really nice and long so you don't get any overlapping or smudging. It does take about 3 to 5 days before you're going to want to protect it with like a water-based protectant like Gator Hide or a clear coat. So you want to do, it'll feel dry, but you do want to give it that 3 to 5 days depending on your area. I know some people can protect in as much as 24 hours, but I'm very leery of that. If you're very experienced and you know, then I say go for it. But if you're only used it a few times, I would definitely say to give it that 3 to 5 days. You can also, a lot of times I will apply it with a brush and then I wipe it back with like a cotton t-shirt. You just want something that does not have a lot of grain in it. I'm actually going to use this on the side because I want to go a little faster and I'm not as comfortable that way, but since we're limited on time, I want to get the largest area of coverage. So you can see I'm just putting some stain on here. I do always like to start on the ends because you don't want smudge marks in the middle. So my last pass, you can work it in, but my last pass is always very smooth and long. If you're gonna do 2 coats, so here's where I do vary a little bit. If you're gonna do 2 coats, the actual product requirement is 24 hours before your second coat. I have done it faster than that. And once you know the stain very well, I mean, you can definitely play with that a little bit. But again, if you're new, to get the best experience, I would definitely recommend Definitely recommend following the instructions until you get comfortable with using it. Oops. So I've got a little smudge here, and I'm gonna go over that again, because if you leave a little smudge in there, it's gonna dry darker. It's not gonna even out. One thing you wanna do too, see how I'm moving with my body? You don't wanna just move your arm. And the reason being is that you're naturally going to create an arc. I've got to come around to the other side. That's what this is. I feel so awkward right now, and usually I'm going the other way. I stand at the front of the piece. But, let's see. I only generally do one coat. That's one reason I like applying it with the applicator pad. It's like I just get the exact right consistency with the amount of stain. Sometimes when I wipe back, I'll wipe a little too much back. Sometimes I want that look, but that's not what I'm going for right now. So, but normally if you just do your arm, you come around in an arc like this. So that's why you want to move your whole body when you apply it. Like I said, you do have a long work time, so that's the nice thing about the oil-based stain. And you can kind of step back, just see kind of where you're at. I did strip this piece as well, and I also just did a little sanding with a 220 grit after I stripped it. And I do have videos on my page if you want to see how to strip a piece of furniture. You can definitely, whoops, my hair fell out over here. So what I just did there, I shouldn't do that. You want to be careful of doing stuff like that. I've got to come to the front. You want to be careful of doing stuff like that because it can leave a streak. So I'm just going to go back over the whole thing and make sure I don't have any smudges or anything like that going on. If you do need to come back, and since I went sideways, I don't have it, but if you do need to come back, you've got a spot and you don't want to go over the whole thing again, you can just lightly take a clean spot on your applicator pad. I love these things. And kind of wipe it back a little bit. I'm losing hair. I've got another piece over there. So I'm just going to come around right quick and do the edges. So like, let's say, because I've already started painting this, and if I get this oil-based stain on this bottom section here, it's oil. So if I try to put my water-based paint, do my second coat, and I've gotten some of this on there, my water-based paint is not going to stick. So if I would get some down here, what I'd want to do is just come back with mineral spirits and just wash that off. And that's another good point too. If you've got a piece of furniture that somebody has used a bunch of end dust or pledge or something like that on, you need to wipe that. It's an oil base, so you need to wipe that with mineral spirits anyway. You can usually tell if there's a wax buildup though. Just making sure that I get this edge nice. Okay, so you guys, I'm a little bit over already, so just really quick, if you didn't see it before, in the description I have the products listed that we used today. I will go back though and list all the products that I've used so far on this. I know somebody asked about that. Also, I do, if you can, like and follow me on Facebook. If you're a retailer, post your store name and where you're located. You can find your local retailer as well through the affiliate link in the description. And if you know somebody who can use this, by all means, please share. Okay, so I've got all of this on. Now I'm going to take a clean part and I'm going to wipe back. I've got a lot around the edges, so I'm just going to wipe back on a clean part a little bit. Well, that was a little bit much, so I'm going to turn it back to my dirty part. And I'm actually going to apply a little bit more there. Well, there we go. I only got one glove, so I try and only use this hand. All right. So you can see too, that took hardly any stain. And the no paint gel stain comes in some gorgeous colors. I love the walnut. That's probably, walnut and espresso are probably the ones I use the most. But we do have the colonial black. We have the picklin white, as well as the weathered gray and the Georgian cherry. So like right here, I've got a nick. And I could have filled that nick with like a brown or the black Dixie mud, but in this case, I don't mind it, but I am, because I can't get in it with this exactly, I'm gonna go ahead, I've got some of the stain soaked in, so if I just press down into that one spot, I was able to get the coverage there. But that's why with oak, it's nice to use a natural bristle brush and to get down into all that grain, especially if it's old. But that's it. There's nothing to it. So, you know, literally 10 minutes to stain the top of that. And we're all done. But thank you guys so much for watching, for hanging out today. I'm sure I missed some comments, but I'll go back and answer any questions. Take care. Have a great day.